Hi, Marty Green here, and this is Math with Marty. We're back again, and I hope if you stayed up late after last week's show that you enjoyed that movie which I recommended, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I know I stayed up late and I really enjoyed it. Actually, I'm sort of lying there because we're taping in advance and that event hasn't occurred yet, but I'm looking forward to that movie anyhow. And I guess you're all looking backwards at it from where you are in the space-time continuum. Yeah, last time we were here, I read you a little selection out of the Ontario Reader's first book from 1923. I'm offering these selections as a kind of a glimpse into our past to see what it is that we have lost from our earlier traditions. It's come as something of a disappointment to me to find out that my children and my nieces and my nephews haven't learned some of the same traditional things like the Christmas carols we used to learn. We used to learn Silent Night, and Away in a Manger, and Little Town of Bethlehem. They still do Christmas carols these days, but it's more like Frosty the Snowman and Jingle Bells, and they have a good one called Christmas is a Feeling. I guess this represents the triumph of secular humanism in our school system. It's good to be sensitive to the feelings of non-traditional minorities in our society, but speaking as a representative of one such minority, I don't think that my parents' generation found it an extreme hardship, considering that we were a predominantly white Christian society, that once a year we would learn some of the songs of the holidays associated with the majority culture. Of course, that's all gone by the wayside in today's system. And a lot of other things that we've done away with, which we look back and say they were bad. And I'd like to read a selection from the book and let you judge for yourself as to how bad it was back in the old days and whether we are better off without this kind of thing. And especially for the parents who have children in schools and are acquainted with the kind of reading materials that their kids are getting nowadays, it makes for an interesting comparison. This is from the grade 1 book, and this is the very first story in the book. It's called The Honest Indian, and I'd like to read it to you. An old Indian once bought some things from a white man who kept a store. By the way, there's no point in this story that I'm reading it for you. It's just for your entertainment and information. An old Indian once bought some things from a white man who kept a store. When he got back to his wigwam and opened his bundle, he found some money in it. Good luck, thought the old Indian to himself. I will keep this money. It will buy many things. He went to bed, but he could not sleep. All night long, he kept thinking about the money. Over and over again, he thought, I will keep it. But something within him seemed to say, no, no, you must not keep it. That would not be right. Early the next morning, he went back to the white man's store. Here is some money, said he. I found it in my bundle. Why did you not keep it? Asked the storekeeper. There are 2 men inside me, replied the Indian. One said, keep it. You found it. The white man will never know. The other said, take it back. Take it back. It's not yours. You have no right to keep it. Then the first one said, keep it. Keep it. But the other kept saying, no, no, take it back. Take it back. The 2 men inside me talked all night. They would not let me sleep. I have brought the money back. Now the 2 men will stop talking. Tonight I shall sleep. There you have it. And I think now it's about time we did some math. We have a guest with us. Those of you who watched last week will remember my good friend John Barsby, who is a teacher at St. John's Ravenscourt. Very illustrious math teacher. And interesting thing about John's career is he started off at Gordon Bell in the public school system, and that's where he had me as a student. And at that time, he was very successful with math contests. Well, back then we just had one math contest. It was
well, you had the junior math contest,
yeah,
and the grade 12
yeah,
contest.
okay,
We had
two contests. Nowadays there's lots of contests, but we had two contests, and we used to do real well. And the way I understand it, your success came to the attention of St. John's Ravenscourt, and
well, it was somewhere around 1975. John Shafter was headmaster at St. John's Ravenscourt at the time, and he was trying to build up the academic strength of the school, which he had done very successfully and continued to do successfully. And that was, I was part of that plan when I came from Gordon Bell.
One thing that sort of puzzles me about the transition is whether or not it indicates that the system works, or does it indicate that the system doesn't work? Now, here's a guy who had accomplishments. The accomplishments were recognized, and then they wanted to hire you. I guess they gave you more money than the public school system.
No, they didn't do that, but they offered me what were better teaching conditions. I don't want to sound critical of the teaching conditions at Gordon Bell, because they were pretty good. And I was very fortunate at Gordon Bell to have a lot of absolutely superb students. You remember our Thursday afternoon math club.
I surely do, yeah.
I mean, that was absolutely great time. But at Gordon Bell, it was also necessary that I had my share of problem students, of what we called the Phase 3 students there. And I think I did well enough with those students. I'd like to think I did as well as most of the teachers did, but it wasn't where I felt my talents were. And
so it wasn't so much the money that made you switch, but that the other school was more...
Oh, the other school offered me straight university entrance courses, and St. John's Ravenscourt was and remains a pretty exciting place to be.
I bet it is.
It was an opportunity in my career that I just couldn't pass up.
And you never looked back, or you've enjoyed it there?
Oh, I've enjoyed it, yes.
Do you think the public school system could have kept you if they had been more appreciative or more sensitive to your interests or abilities, or?
Well, I sometimes ask myself what I would do as a principal of a place like Gordon Bell. To me, it's a very difficult question, because different teachers have different talents, and there are some teachers who are very good at what I call the social work aspects of education, who are far better at that than I am. My talents lay elsewhere, and for a principal to match the talents with the jobs available means that he's got to have just the right staff for that.
Yeah.
He's got to have enough people of the social work interests to meet those needs. He's got to have enough people of the academic interests to meet those needs, and sometimes that's not always possible.
I understand. Now, in the time you've been at Ravenscourt, you've continued to be extremely successful in terms of performance on math contests. And I don't want to bore my audience with reams of statistics of all the winners you've had over the years, but he's had so many that it would bore the people to death. Why don't you tell us about a few of them?
Well, the old junior math contest, of course, was very exciting. And back in the Gordon Bell years, we had 2 national champions. You were 20th in Canada, and on individually, and on one of the teams that came first. And
I was second in the school, by the way. I mean, it was no big deal to be 20th in Canada on our team.
And at SJR, much the same things happened. We won the old JMC 3 times, and we won the Euclid a couple times, and we've won a large number of things since then.
Well, you have more contests available to you nowadays. We only had the one a year that we could write.
That's right. Once the contest fragmented into subdivisions, it was, if you didn't win one, you might win another.
Well, okay, in terms of your success having been so visible, have you had more opportunities to change careers? Have people recognized your success and offered you jobs based on it?
I would find that question difficult to answer, because there have been a few occasions where I thought that might happen, but I always let it be known as soon as there was any sort of hint of that sort of thing that I was enjoying what I was doing and quite happy where I was. So I would have to say no, that's not happened.
And yet, there you are, you're doing all right, and you're pretty happy with what you're doing. So as far as career-wise, I guess the system has worked okay for you.
Oh, yes. No, I would say it definitely has.
That's interesting. I think I would like to do a little math on today's show. We've been having such a nice time just conversing that we haven't done any math for a little while. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about orders of the infinite, and one of the most influential developments towards the end of the 19th century, which has, I think, had a great philosophical impact on the way mathematicians have looked at things in the 20th century. I'm talking about Cantor's demonstration that infinite quantities are not all equal to each other, but that there are certain classes of infinite quantities that are much greater than others. And we said, first of all, that the integers were no more numerous than a subset of themselves. For example, the even integers are no more numerous than the integers as a whole. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the same as 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we said a much more surprising thing, that the rational numbers, the set of all fractions, can be counted using the integers. So that in Cantor's way of looking at things, the rational numbers, although they constitute a densely packed set on the number line, are no more numerous than the integers. And yet, not all infinite quantities are equal to each other, because if we fill in the real line with a black felt pen so that we include all possible numbers, we achieve a set which is much denser than merely the rationals or the integers or what have you. And the proof of this is crazy proof, and I think we're going to try and look at it a little later in the show. But I think it's time for a song right now. Do you think so, John?
That sounds reasonable.
Okay. Well, you get to the board, or you can sit down, but you think about how you're going to lay it out, and me and Sharon are going to do a song.
Okay.
Yeah. What are we, about 15 minutes into the show, Rob? All right. Well, then we're going to have time for the math. Okay. Now, you see, Rob is a little short-handed, but he's just raced back to the console, and there we are on TV. Isn't that something? There's the camera. Now, here's a song, Sharon. It was done by Crystal Gayle and Eddie Rabbitt, and it's one of those kind of circle of fifths songs where the harmonies sort of track each other on thirds. Now, you do the harmony a little bit different than the way Crystal Gayle did. She goes real high and does the harmony. It's what's a third above Eddie Rabbitt. And you're doing, okay, now you got to understand, when a male and female voice sing together, when they're an octave apart, it sounds like they feel they're in unison. So when we say a third above in harmonies, we're really talking about the female voice going a third up on top of the octave, which is a tenth. and we talk about the third below, we're talking about really a sixth above in actual intervals. Now, me and Sharon tend to harmonize on that sixth. So, so the ones we pass over are a little bit different than the ones Crystal Gale does with Eddie Rabbit. But for what we do, it sounds kind of good. Now let's see how it sounds. Just you and I, here in our love together, and I know in time we'll build the dreams we treasure. We'll be all right. Just you and I. And I remember our first embrace, the smile that was on your face, the promises that we made. And now your love is my reward, and I love you even more than I ever did before.
Just you and I. We care and trust each other. But I know inside there'll never be another. We'll be alright. Just you and I. And I remember our first embrace, the smile that was on your face, the promises that we made. And now your love is my reward, and I love you even more than I ever did before. We made it, you and I. That's real nice. Now, I wonder if we should try and demonstrate what that other harmony was. I'd have to ask you to go high. Let's just see how it sounds. So you'd be going, and I. That's the one. Okay. And I remember our first embrace, the smile that was on your face. Oh, they go all over the accidentals there. You see, she's going in and out of the key like crazy. Wow.
It's unbelievable what she
Okay.
does there.
Can
Okay.
we do it in
Yeah, let's go a little lower. I'll go
Yeah.
down one whole note. And I remember our first embrace, the smile that was on your face, the promises that we made. And now your love is my reward, and I love you even more than I ever did before. It's something like that, yeah. The harmonies are wild the way she does them. But
That's a ridiculous harmony.
yeah, the other thing is like Eddie Rabbit's doing quite a lot higher than I am, so
Oh,
they're way
right.
up there.
So
Like she's
they're-
got that real high
Okay.
voice. You see, the range and everything affects what you can get away with. So so we tend to do it our way. Anyhow, that's a real nice song. We got about 10 minutes, and we're gonna turn the blackboard over to John and see what he can do with the diagonal proof for us. You ready to go for it?
Okay. Well, what Marty has asked me to do is to present the famous counter-diagonal proof that demonstrates that the real numbers cannot be put into a one-to-one correspondence with the counting integers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I want to take 30 seconds before I do that to deal with the question of, well, why would anybody ever think they could in the first place?
Good
Well, the reason why this became important in Cantor's mind is he found out that the rational numbers, which are a completely dense set, I mean, the rational numbers there's so many of them that in any tiny interval there's infinitely many of them, yet Cantor found that they could be counted off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., if he arranged them properly. So what Cantor did is he arranged the fractions like this: 1 over 1, 2 over 1, 3 over 1, 4 over 1, all the fractions with a diagonal of 1, or with a denominator of 1, all the fractions with a denominator of 2, all the fractions with a denominator of 3. Now, it's true there are repetitions. For instance, somewhere we're going to end up with 6 over 3, which also appears there as 4 over 2. But if we run into one we've had before, we can just skip it. And then he proceeded to count them along diagonals like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on forever along these diagonals, hitting every one of the fractions, eventually getting it into complete one-to-one correspondence with the natural numbers. Well, if you can do that with the rational numbers, he thinks, can you do it with the real numbers? I mean, it would be astonishing if you could, but then surely it's astonishing that you can do it with these. So he set out to see if he could prove that you can't do it. And the diagonal idea worked out pretty well there. So he's going to bring in diagonals again. This is going to be a indirect proof, a proof by contradiction. Or if you have a more classical bent, since Marty's bringing his old school books, if you want to go back to 1923, it would have probably been called a reductio ad absurdum, where you assume something can happen and you proceed until you get a contradiction. Well, let's assume that just all the real numbers in the interval between 0 and 1 can be put into one-to-one correspondence with the integers and get a contradiction. Well, suppose 1 goes to this long decimal number. This is the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths. And 2 goes on to this one, the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, the 10,000ths, and so on, forever. Now, just because time is limited, I'm going to assume that these are all in base 2 representation because it's easy to explain in base 2.
Oh, you still got 4 minutes.
I've got 4
Yeah.
minutes? Okay,
Yeah.
I can do it in base 10 given 4 minutes. So we'll assume that these are all just ordinary everyday decimal representations of the numbers between 0 and 1, and every single number is on this list somewhere. Well, here's the contradiction. I'm going to show you that the number x down here is not on that list. And the way I'm going to construct this number x is I'm going to just make sure that the first decimal place is not the same as this one. And I want to have some rule as to how to get that decimal place. So my rule will be, if this is a 1, I'll make that a 2. If this is a 2, I'll make that a 3. Just a simple little, like a code in the newspaper where you're trying to solve a cryptogram. I'll just exchange did 2 for 1, I'll put in 3 for 2, I'll put in 4 for 3, and so on until 8s get replaced with 9s, and 9s will get replaced with 0s. So using that little translation code, I will choose this digit, so it's 1 greater than that digit. I'll choose this one, so it's 1 greater than that one. I'll draw in the diagonal I'm going to be following. I will choose this digit, so it's 1 greater than this one. I'll choose that digit, so it's 1 greater than that one, and so on. So that once I have found my new number, I will then prove that it's not on this list. And the reason it's not on this list is it can't equal the first number because the first digits are different. It can't equal the second number because the second digits are different. It can't equal the third number because the third digits are different. It can't equal the fourth number because the fourth digits are different, and so on to infinity. Therefore, I have constructed a new number that is totally different from any number on this list. Therefore, my initial assumption that this list put all those integers into, all those real numbers into one-to-one correspondence with all these integers is a false assumption, and the contradiction proves that it's impossible to find a one-to-one correspondence between the integers and the real numbers. Now, I don't know, this is a 4-minute
No, we just had the 2-minute
diagonal.
flag, John, so you're well inside your...
I rushed through it, but
No,
does that sound comprehensible?
No, I thought it was beautiful, but I forgot how good you were in front of a blackboard, John. In fact, if I'd have remembered how good you were, I never would have let you go on here because you make me look sick. No, I know, that was beautiful. The thing is that always was a paradox to us. It looked like you created one number that wasn't on the list. And how could it be? You're trying to prove that there's infinitely many more, and all you've got is one extra number. But it always grated on me when I was a kid.
Well, that's because I chose such a special rule for creating this extra number. But if
you
I
could create lots.
Do I have 1 minute left, Marty?
1 minute left.
1 minute.
Yeah, you want to say something?
I'm going to say something. Most people intuitively think that there should be more rationals than irrationals. But of course, the irrationals are overwhelmingly more numerous.
Right.
If you ever want to explain that to somebody intuitively, just say this.
Yeah.
If you had a number generator to generate a random number generator to generate a random number one digit at a time, what is the probability that that random number generator is going to eventually terminate with a whole bunch of zeros?
Oh, it never will.
Or what is the probability that it's going to do something like 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2,
yeah, repeating decimal.
1, 2 ever
Yeah, I'm
afterward.
hoping hell of generating a random number just by coming up with digits.
If you generate a number at random, it is certain to be irrational.
It's always going to be irrational because you're never going to have repeating digits. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, John, that's about it for the show, and thank you for coming on. That was great, and we're just probably going to close out with one more little song. I wonder if I'm forgetting to say something.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll have you on again. But you're not going to do no more math because you make me look sick. And here's one by the Kentucky Headhunters. Everybody's going out and having fun.